Yo, what up, Good morning, MGS. Tuesday. Is it Tuesday? Yeah. June 17th, 2025. Look at that. Another beautiful day to have a beautiful day. I got my co-host in the house, Tyler. Tyler, good morning. How you doing today?
I'm good. Was a little bit of a stressful evening last night as the headlines were starting to pour in. Trump told everyone to evacuate Tehran. China told everyone to evacuate Israel. So things were a bit stressful. It doesn't seem like too much escalated overnight. Clearly, market's a little bit shaky right now on the back of all that. So we're trying to sort through it, and happy to talk through it live here this morning.
Jesus, yeah, no, it's so frustrating, right? Like every time we're so close to somewhat of a high on the market, there's like the headline gets a little worse. It goes to show you, yeah, we've been stable. Bitcoin is doing good, but you know, it does scare still a little bit when these happen. So, anyways, we're gonna talk about this in a minute here. We'll talk about the market. See Mando in the studio. I'm gonna bring him up in a second. We got let me don't see your headphones on. I'll just bring you up now. What up, Mando? We're gonna talk about the market. We're gonna talk Tyler's top 100, which will probably keep the first part of the show short because today we have a show in two parts. First, the usual stuff as you guys are all used to, and then we have a special guest coming on from DFDV, DeFi Dev Corp, which is a company that is attempting to acquire $5 billion worth of Solana.
Freudian slip.
That's so funny. I didn't even. It was so nice. I'm sorry.
That's the next move. That's the next move.
That's the next move. Wow, that came out so naturally too.
Moon.
Yeah, you could see how much free rent Farcoin has in my head. I mean, holy shit. Anyways, it's attempting to acquire $5 billion worth of Solana. So we're getting them on to talk about the strategy and all things that should be good. Then, as usual, YEET giveaway. So YEET.com, make an account, use the code FOMO Hour. You have to use our code, our ref code, of course, FOMO Hour to win. You also have to have a public account. Don't forget that. And you have to have placed a bet, guys. You have to have placed a bet so that we can see your account is active and real. It's very important for you guys to do that. So those three things. And then we're set. And last but not least, this show is powered by Wallet Connect. Wallet Connect is a connectivity network shaping the future of on-chain UX. If you've connected to a Web3 app, you've seen Wallet Connect. That blue logo, it's everywhere. You're not going to trust in crypto as recognizable as Visa checkout. Want to learn more? Follow Wallet Connect on X and Telegram. Stay ahead of what's next. But also, Kraken Pro. Kraken Pro gives active traders exactly what they need. Deep liquidity, full customization, 350 plus trading pairs. Build your own layout with drag and drop modules and trade seamlessly across desktop or mobile. Go to pro.kraken.com and trade without trade-offs. Mando. Looks like we were en route to all-time high, and then we got some more macro news. So we'll let you talk about that.
Who is the man, macro daddy of the land?
Can you dig it?
Can you guys hear me okay? Is this all right?
Hey, good.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to move. It was too hot. Too hot today.
You need to put an AC unit in your office.
Yeah, I got one, and then now I've had to get an even better one. So I moved to a better AC area. But yeah, it's very hot today. In terms of what happened overnight, I feel like we were headed to a. I mean, there's obviously this underlying headline tennis at the moment. Like one headline can throw us off course. And that kind of is what happened yesterday. It felt as though the market was coming to, maybe downplaying what was about to happen. Didn't see much risk. And then I think when we spoke about it yesterday, we said the escalations would be closing the Strait of Hormuz, different weaponry being used, or if the US got involved in this Fordow plant, the one that's like left. And Trump seemingly last night indicated two things. He said, one, the negotiation I'm still there for a deal, which I kind of thought would be be the path that he chose. But then he did say evacuate Tehran yesterday, which would indicate that they might strike this nuclear plant. It's not that close to Tehran, the plant, but like obviously when you drop bombs on a nuclear plant, you have to be kind of aware that there can be nuclear fallout and all this sort of stuff. So that was like a heavy indication that they might be looking to get involved. And there's been a big movement of several different US military assets closer to the region, or at least to different bases. And yeah, we'll see. It's on a knife edge here, though, in terms of will the US get involved. I thought Trump would have to ask Congress for them to get involved, and seemingly he can do this without them, or at least there's enough gray area there.
Isn't the president of the United States commander in chief, and therefore can kind of do what they want?
He's the executive, so he can do a range of different things. But in terms of going to war, you normally have to ask Congress to go to war. Now, that being said, well, you do. That being said, like you can do various military actions if there's an imminent threat, and he would be able to probably argue that there is an imminent threat here of an Iranian nuclear missile. So he might be able to do this, and he probably would be able to do this without any issue. I actually looked into this for quite a while, and it doesn't seem like the US is actually, when it went to war in Iraq and Afghanistan, it didn't actually even declare war, which was kind of crazy. Both of those done without even the declaration of war. So it tells you that there's a lot of, I mean, Afghanistan, you could argue that there was a very clear path there for why he didn't need to go to Congress for Bush not to need to go to Congress to act there. Iraq, arguably, you could have said, is under a similar pretext to this, in terms of a threat of nuclear or weapons of mass destruction, and I think there's enough remit there then that they can act. So I think Trump can get involved if he has the power to. It's really just whether Iran comes to the table this week and basically gives enough concessions, I think. But because otherwise, I do think there's a very clear path here now for the US to kind of. It wouldn't be a massive involvement, right? Like they wouldn't have to put boots on the ground. It's really just these two plants that they'd have to bomb with B-52 bombers, and then they could pretty much then end it. So I don't know. I think Trump doesn't maybe even know himself. Like if you listen to his tweets, he's kind of a bit all over the place. They've obviously got their military assets in place, and maybe he's already made a decision, but I think he also likes to make a deal. So like, I don't know, but it could be very, very close. Is basically what I'm saying. So we could hear news about it. If they were to get involved, the market clearly didn't like it yesterday. So you saw the market sell off. I don't know if it was just because it was the language is so aggressive and like the way that it was described seemed particularly aggressive. I don't know if the market sells off on a US strike of 4 down. I don't know. I don't think it would be like, Bitcoin to 80K sort of scenario or even 90K. Like I think it might just cause volatility more than anything.
Yeah. Expected, it feels like. Bitcoin is still strong. It's 105.6. And of course, see the rest of the market kind of has the bigger wicks up and down, especially meme coins, that's for sure. On these, it still feels like a little bit of uncertainty, man, though, on the market side due to these headlines, right? I think, Tyler, we were kind of talking about it for a minute, but
it's massive.
It doesn't feel like we're going to get that like all-time high or that 120K wick with like a war.
The market needs resolution. So what I don't think it likes is, I think it felt, I mean, if you look at Polymarket right now, there's a 55% chance the US and Iran come to some sort of nuclear deal in 2025. So
that's what we want, right?
Market is predicting, well, you could want various different things, but I think the market was more predicting that. They were predicting that the US wouldn't get involved, that there wouldn't be enough to take out the Fordow plant without the US getting involved, and they were heading for a deal. Now, maybe Trump's doing brinkmanship here, but it has felt like over the last 24 hours, the chance of the US getting involved has gone up materially. So
60% chance of Polymarket.
Right. so you see, like, you have that, but then if you go US Iran deal, US in 2025, right?
Before July, I have it. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, so I guess it's in 2025, and this has gone up. So it's difficult. It's on a knife edge. What happens here, basically, and I think the market won't particularly like the first. I mean, you probably will only hear about it when it happens. B-52 bombers, you don't get telegraphed when they go up in the air. You only get telegraphed when they've blown up the thing that they are planning on blowing up. So, like, we won't know about this until it's actually happened, and then we'll see what the market does.
All right.
You could also hear about a deal, but it would have to be, like the positions that they're in right now. It would have to be, in my opinion, a deal of massive concession from Iran to get a deal done, like massive to get a deal done.
All right. What's up, Tyler? Were you gonna add something?
No, I think Amanda explained it very well. In some ways, it feels like Trump is kind of moving the chess pieces on the board right now. And a part of me thinks he wants to get the deal done, and a part of me wonders, like, did he try basically as hard as he can to get the deal done, and they passed some kind of a point where the negotiations, like, it just wasn't happening. So I don't think any of us will know until we see this resolve. But in some ways, it does feel like we're going to get answers soon on all of this. Like, I guess it's kind of this week, right? Like, if
when Israel first attacked, they said 2 weeks. That's when they first strike. They said expect 2 weeks of this. We'll see. Yeah, but when's the first day officially? What's up?
This isn't a war that goes on for months. This is a war that gets decided in the next 2 weeks, in my opinion. I don't.
Yeah. Well, they literally announced
it. Happening here, and I think the next move of attack here from Israel seemingly is a bit more of a cyber warfare. They've started attacking like the banks and the communication lines today. So, like, there's only really so many more levers you can pull here before, are we actually going to hit that nuclear facility or not? And I think when that happens, or if that happens, it would really be kind of, I don't think there's going to be a push anymore for regime change after that. I'll just see what happens.
I think that's right. I mean, back on maybe pulling this back to the trading perspective a bit. I think somewhat encouraging to see Bitcoin basically bounced off your line, right? So it's still trading above the range. It was down only this morning.
We're still here.
And then it hit 105, and then it bounced off 105 back to 105.5 here.
We're still here, brothers. We've now been ranging above the line. Above, I would say, here 40 days, I would say, in this range. We had a sharp pullback to above 100 for like 2 seconds. That literally lasted maybe 15 minutes last week. But we have been in this range for 40 days now. And we haven't really broken down the range. So Bitcoin doesn't look bad, right?
It's a better range to be in than the last one.
Right? Definitely a better range here. That's for sure. Anyways, we'll see where that takes us, and we'll keep our eyes out for any more news regarding this conflict. Anyways, Tyler, let's see what you got for us today.
For daily NFT and crypto analysis. Tyler T on FOMO hour cause the kid can't.
Yeah, folks, crypto majors red falling this morning amidst concerns of the U.S. entering the Israel-Iran war. Odds are up to 60% of that happening over on Polymarket. Bitcoin 105.5 right now, ETH at 25.60. Let's check in on Solana. Solana down 3% of the day at 151. A lot of international headlines here, at least a couple. So Vietnam formalized its crypto asset law, recognizing crypto and virtual assets. That's going into effect in January 2026 with incentives for startups. And then this morning, ahead of the show, Thailand announced no taxes on crypto for the next 5 years. So they are
let's go, baby.
Oh, bros. Somewhat related to this, Franklin Templeton came out and said they think that Europe, the EU, risks becoming a crypto flyover zone based on their lagging regulatory approach and how it compares to the US and APAC. So EU lagging behind. In more domestic news here for the US, JP Morgan filed a trademark for JPMD, a new digital asset platform trademark, perhaps hinting at a stablecoin. That's how a lot of folks interpreted it. We talked about this news yesterday. Justin Sun's Tron will go public via a SPAC and look to build out a MicroStrategy model for acquiring Tron or TRX. U.S. Bitcoin miners hit a new hash rate record. They now control 31% of the global Bitcoin hash rate. I thought that was an interesting stat there. In Treasury news, we had Universal Digital launch a new Bitcoin Treasury strategy, and this company Fold announced $250 million to buy more Bitcoin. So these pile in by the day. And Cantor Fitzgerald predicted a 60 to 75% stock price bump for those companies building Solana treasuries. Very bullish on SOL over at Cantor Fitzgerald. And then breaking news also this morning, EigenLayer just rolled out their Eigen Cloud platform, fueled by a $70 million raise from A16Z Crypto. So that was a big one as well. And token airdrop and protocol news.
How much did they raise?
70 million. Yeah, 70
They raised
million.
70 million?
Yep, 70 from A16Z Crypto.
Wow.
That is a big amount.
It's a big one. Big visions. They're looking to extend their blockchain grade trust guarantees to any Web 2 or Web 3 app. With
how much is the Eigen token worth?
$2 billion?
I don't know, actually.
Yeah, 2 billion. Wow. Okay. All right. So that makes sense.
They're cooking.
They are. I'll just round this out, and then we could perhaps dig into some of these. Pump Fund getting suspended from X was kind of talk of the timeline last night, but it wasn't just Pump Fund. It was their founder, Alan, and then several other crypto trading bots. I think GMGN and a few others got suspended as well from X. So it's still to be seen exactly what these folks did to perhaps get suspended. There's some talk that they used some, they went around some API that Twitter has, and perhaps that's what they got in trouble for. We will see. Meme Strategy, the meme company they just acquired, they have now built their own Solana corporate treasury. They bought 2,440 SOL for 372,000 last night, making them the first publicly listed company in Asia to do that. REKT Drinks, shout out right after the show yesterday, sold out their latest limited edition drop of REKT Drinks, just over 20 minutes, continuing the sellout streak. And then Nansen announced Nansen Points Season 1. They are doing their own rewards program here for those subscribing to their higher tiers, staking, referring friends, and more. Other than that, meme coin leader is very red on the day. Not a surprise. Mostly more red than the crypto majors. We did have Binance US tease a Fartcoin listing. Then we got confirmation this morning. Fartcoin will be live for trading on Binance US tomorrow morning. So we will see the impact that has.
Why Binance US and not Binance?
I had the very same question. This is the first time we've seen a Binance US push over the global Binance. That is a very surprising.
I don't know how it works. I don't know.
And I think that's why we didn't see much of a move on it.
Yeah. Or maybe now it's like they go there first. I don't know.
Where is Fartcoin now?
Apparently they did the same thing with Hype, by the way.
They did.
Like Hype got Binance US.
Yeah, I remember.
So Fartcoin's at 113 right now, 114.
So in the last week, it's got Coinbase and Binance US. 2 weeks.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's been doing big volume on Coinbase.
It's doing a certain amount of volume. It hit 130 last night. It just didn't really break that. I feel like it's just like the rest of the market. Like Solana itself is like that 150 range, right? So
yeah,
we really need
very good news for Solana over the last 24 hours, like, or at least the last few days. And I've been surprised that I thought it was about to have like a decent little period there, and then just kind of died a little bit, didn't it?
Well, let's talk about this, right? So what's this Cantor news, Tyler? I saw your tweet about it earlier today.
Yeah, they published a pretty lengthy report here. They've assigned the overweight rating to the major three public companies which have announced these Solana corporate treasuries, which is DeFi Development Corp, who we're talking to here in just a few minutes, Upexi, and Sol Strategies that with the ticker HODL. They basically think they're going to go up 60 to 75%. They're saying, and I quote here, "We believe Solana treasury companies are betting the future of finance will be on chain and that the chain of choice will be Solana." And their report is very bullish Solana over Ethereum. That's basically who they compare and contrast it to. They even went to say, in comparing layer 1, Solana's tech is meaningfully better than Ethereum across every metric in the Cantor Fitzgerald report here. So they are quite bullish on Solana, and they are carrying that forward to these companies acquiring these treasuries. They actually mentioned, and I want to talk about this with our guests today. They said DFDV is the best positioned, citing their management team and ownership of Solana infrastructure. So they're deeper and more integrated into SOL. So we'll talk about that with them. And they're saying that in general, these become the next generation of Bitcoin style corporate reserve plays. So
headline breaking news. Coinbase is applied. Coinbase is applied for SEC listing. Coinbase is seeking approval from the SEC to offer blockchain-based stock trading.
Yeah.
That'd be big.
Damn.
We're going to dig into this deeper on Underexposed today. Just quick plug, just because Jeeves is he's short Circle. I don't want to steal his thunder.
Oh.
The Circle Coinbase spread is becoming pretty ridiculous. Circle is at 38 billion. Coinbase is at 65. So Circle is now worth about 60% of Coinbase.
Damn.
Circle is worth $38 billion.
Yeah, bro, it's up.
Doesn't that spread? There's something wrong. Something is wrong there. Like
it's trading at like 150.
We have a new spread, guys.
No, it's trading at 1500x.
What?
Price to earnings?
Yeah, 1500. Sorry, that's what I meant. Yeah, that's insane.
Oh,
that's insane.
Shit.
You got to short this thing.
Like it's fun. Like we're all hyped about Circle. We're all proud of them. But like at some point, like some of these numbers don't make sense.
No. God, all these blockchain firms are just like, why didn't we just IPO? Well, we have blockchain technology. We didn't need a goddamn coin.
It's hilarious to me that it's trading at this massive memetic premium just on the stablecoin meme, effectively, beyond their finances after everyone just kind of bash memes. It's just all coming full circle. Pun intended.
Stonks. Exactly. All right. Well, that's interesting. What else you got for us, Tyler? I know we got the Solana stuff with DFDV in a minute.
Is the gang moving to Thailand?
Is the gang?
I mean, if it didn't make it more attractive, now it is.
Yeah. That's a fun headline. I haven't had a chance to dig into the specifics, but yeah, as I understand it, no taxes on crypto for the next 5 years, which is I'd say about as long as most people's time horizons are who are in the camp that might move to Thailand based on their trading history. So that was a fun one this morning. I think the JP Morgan trademark news, arguably the biggest of the day. So they filed a trademark with the U.S. Patent Office for this JPMD. It describes a project that entails trading, exchange, transfer, and payment services for digital assets issued on blockchains. The trademark has been accepted, but is not yet approved. So it is still just in the proposal status. The filing itself does not use the word stablecoin, but that's how everyone seemed to interpret this one. And folks now think that JP Morgan will be launching their own stablecoin. This, of course, comes after other major banks like Bank of America, Deutsche Bank, the list goes on, have all talked about launching their own stablecoins. And I think that's an interesting backdrop for this Circle pump. Circle is soaring as the public stock stablecoin play. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, every major bank is building up their own plans to launch their own stablecoin. So what does that mean for Circle? So I think it's certainly something to be aware of. And also just a sign, I think it's always more interesting when JP Morgan goes deeper into crypto, just because Jamie Dimon has been so historically anti-Bitcoin and crypto. And now it seems like
he's slightly there, right? If you listen to his interviews, he says, I'm against Bitcoin, but I'm for blockchain. That's what he always says now. So like,
yeah,
that is his line. So I feel like he's basically covered himself for them to do things in blockchain, but not Bitcoin.
Yeah. That's always the good cop out, right? So JPMD is the next big thing. And then last thing, I see DK in the studio. I'll bring you up in a second from DFDV. So can't wait to get in that conversation. Whatever happened yesterday on Twitter? Like they deleted like 15 accounts.
Yeah, they
like
called
a lot of them. GMGN, a lot of the trading things. Pump Fund, Alon, Hugenzi claims that they'll be right back. But do we know what's going on?
The KOL apocalypse, they're calling it. I think the early speculation and worries were that it was for folks who were advertising tickers and or links to trading crypto tokens, low caps, memes. I don't know if that's
I didn't see this.
going to be accurate. I think I saw what felt like a more substantive rationale, that it was these accounts were going around the Twitter API, perhaps. And now they were linking back to their site. So I think that was one rationale. And then I also saw Bo Security. He's a very public security expert in the Pudgy Penguin ecosystem. So that his take was that this was a targeted private attack. So someone had a list of accounts they wanted to go after, and they worked through Twitter insiders to go after this. So
what insiders though? Just like no
at first I was concerned that, like, is anyone talking about tickers going to be subject to this? I don't think we're there. I think it's something else is at play here. My guess is probably the API thing, but
what's this Berwick law thing?
I don't think it's related to this at all. I
No,
think
this was 40 minutes ago.
They've been tweeting for the last 24 hours. They've been getting quite a lot of traction.
They're the ambulance chasers of the meme coin market. So if you ever lost money trading on Pump Fund or any of these apps, they'll say they'll represent you.
Yeah, you can blame Pump Fund for slipping down.
They're
bang
cooking.
your knee.
They're cooking. So that's that on that front. So it looks like that was the latest, and that they'll be back. Anyways, should we go to our interview today? I think we should. We got DK in the studio. I'm gonna bring him up right now, and let you take this one, Tyler. What's up, DK? How you doing?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. Let's see if we have to remove. There you go. He was already on it. Let's go. Yo, chat. I want to see some love. Degenz live. We have a dope guest on the show with hat. Love the hat.
Yeah, love it.
Hat stays on.
The hat stays on.
It's funny,
so
actually.
funny.
My kids even have these hats. Like, you'll see them often running around, and they get very upset if you take the hat from them.
Yo, I like that. So the hat definitely stays on in the DK household. You love to see that. Anyways, DK, I'll pass this on to Tyler because he's got some questions for you. But quickly, maybe give us a little introduction, who you are, and what you guys do at DFDV.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm DK. I head investor relations over at DeFi Dev Corp, ticker DFDV. We were the very first US listed public company to announce a Solana treasury strategy. We like to think of ourselves as the fastest and most efficient way to stack SOL. We used to say we're sort of next gen MicroStrategy, but now, feels like everyone and their mother has launched a crypto treasury vehicle. So I really like to think of ourselves as the first true on-chain to TradFi bridge, where we're bringing on-chain innovation into TradFi and TradFi capital into DeFi. We're a team of all former Krakenites, so it's not our first rodeo in crypto.
Oh, nice.
And our North Star is one metric, Solana per share. We really value growing each individual shareholder's underlying Solana exposure on a per share basis. It's how we measure performance, align our incentives, and build long-term shareholder value. So that's the bit on us.
I love that tagline, by the way. And I was saying that on one of our shows a few days ago, the maximizing SOL per share. It's catchy. It's very easy to understand.
Yeah, exactly. We're also at completely unintentionally, we're currently at 0.0420 SOL per share. So can't make this stuff up.
Let's cut a zero. So there's a lot to get into. Maybe let's go a little bit deeper into the history. So the company was Janover, and then you made this big splash announcement. I want to say it was the 1st of May. So maybe walk us through the timeline, kind of how things have progressed to where they're at now.
Yeah, there's really I'll get to sort of a two-part story here. Two parts of the origin story of DFDV. The first is what I like to call getting the gang back together, sort of how I present this. So our entire executive team, as I mentioned, Joseph, our CEO, Parker White, our COO and Chief Investment Officer, and John Hahn, our CFO, all worked closely together at Kraken over the years. And I had the privilege of working with each of them in different capacities as well. What's really great about this team, as I mentioned, it's like a very deeply crypto native team. We all really understand each other's working styles by virtue of having worked together at Kraken. So Joseph left Kraken after serving most recently as its Chief Strategy Officer. He would tell you he's been working his entire career, call it the last 20 some odd years, on individual liberty. And for him, crypto has always been a form of like peaceful rebellion or peaceful revolution. So I have to get the exact date count here, but let's say like somewhere around earlier this year. So the idea is fairly new. Parker approached him with this idea of creating like an upgraded version of the MSTR model. This idea of bringing on-chain innovation into TradFi and TradFi Capital into DeFi, but on Solana. And you'll laugh, but there was no like, it's not like this discussion played out over multiple weeks, not even multiple days. I think Parker pitched him on a phone call and Joseph was like, yep, hell yeah, I'm all in. This is like exactly the thing that I want to do. That's more or less how the whole team came together too. I think like, you know, phone calls to John, myself, Pete Humiston, our head of research, like one phone call, we heard the pitch and we're like, yeah, this idea is really awesome. But I think it only really worked because, as I mentioned, like the team is really unique. You know, you had to get this like unique team of Krakenites together for this to really work. And the second part of the story is how we got to Janover. And that kind of happened by accident. I think Joseph met Blake Janover, the founder of Janover, through like a friend of a friend. And Blake was like, nah, I don't want anything to do with this guy or this crypto stuff. Like, get away from me. So Joseph ended up like, I don't know, like watching all his interviews, podcasts, like reading some of his favorite books, just kind of like went quasi stalker mode on Blake a little bit there. And eventually Blake was like, okay, fine. Like I'll take your phone call. Let's hear what you have to say. And we actually ended up becoming really close with the Janover team. And we've retained Blake. We've retained the former CFO, Janover, Bruce Rosenblum on the team as well, which is important because they both have a lot of public markets experience. And the only thing I'd add is like, there wasn't some grand plan to acquire a B2B SaaS company, you know, in real estate for this project. We just, again, coincidentally by luck, Blake happened to own more than 50% of the shares. So it happened to represent like a really good takeover structure for us, whereby we could do the transaction in one fell swoop, no NASDAQ approval or anything like that. So we did. We announced the deal on April 7th and announced the change in treasury strategy. And here we are a couple months later.
Off to the races already. Well, I think one of the $1 billion question, why did you choose SOL over other crypto or downstream? That's it was a huge decision, clearly.
Yeah, I mean, look, point blank, we're very bullish on SOL, right? If we were obviously, and it's not to say, I think we often get asked that question, like, why choose SOL and not Bitcoin, right? Do you guys hate Bitcoin or anything? And what I tell people is we all love Bitcoin here internally. At DeFi Dev Corp, we're all Bitcoin holders, but, you know, I think the cool part about Solana is it offers this really cool combination of just like performance, as mentioned, upside that we believe in, but yield and like real on-chain usage that you can build a business around. And that kind of usage is important because I think a lot of the Bitcoin treasury vehicles that exist today are highly capital markets dependent to grow their underlying Bitcoin holdings versus with us. You know, not to say we're not going to tap the capital markets playbook. It's a very powerful tool, but by virtue of running our own validator infrastructure, we actually don't have to tap into the capital markets to keep growing our underlying SOL per share. So we've come out and told folks, like on our first, what we call first party SOL, our actual underlying Solana treasury, we can earn anywhere from like a 9 to 11% yield on that. And it's just wash, rinse, repeat, right? So by virtue of operating this on a proof of stake asset, you're not subject to the same limitations that you are with, say, a Bitcoin treasury vehicle. So, you know, again, I think Bitcoin's the best store of value on earth, but it just doesn't produce, you know, the kind of yield or support the kind of business that we were looking for. The other element, which is a bit more like tactical, is just MicroStrategy has obviously dominated the Bitcoin vehicle space. And what I've been telling folks is like, if I hand you a football and you go on a football field, would you, you know, want to play running back against an NFL lineman, or would you rather go and run the ball down the field with no one in your way? And, you know, Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy, they're the NFL linemen in the Bitcoin vehicle space. So it's like, hats off to those who want to try to take them on. But, you know, we intend to become, you know, that big behemoth in the Solana treasury space.
Yeah, and that makes a ton of sense. And I would probably find myself making a similar choice there. So I can definitely respect that. So I mean, let's get deeper into the operation. So you mentioned that you all run validator nodes. I guess, are you looking to also get into like Solana DeFi protocols as ways to continue to get yield on the SOL? I'm kind of curious about that aspect of the treasury or the business.
Yeah, so we started with this core infrastructure that, as I mentioned, was pretty important just to, I think, like separate ourselves from the rest of the pack on other crypto treasury vehicles, right? By virtue of earning yield, earning rewards, of being able to put our actual treasury assets to use, we sort of I'm going to say like free ourselves of complete capital markets dependency, which will become particularly important in bear markets specifically, right? So I would say that's probably like the first most important element. But in recent weeks, we've actually done like, man, it feels sort of like a press release blitz on a bunch of what I would call like on-chain innovation. So it started with really DFDV SOL, or liquid staking token, issued by Sanctum. And I think when that press release first came out, people were like, huh, like, why are these guys, why get into liquid staking? This doesn't really, make a lot of sense. And then a number of press releases started coming out where, you could see that it's been integrated across a number of different areas in DeFi, whether it's, Camino, Exponent, like, I've actually been incapable of counting on one hand at this point how many integrations we've done across the space. But I think at the highest level, the idea is that we want folks to be able to think of us as like a more holistic ecosystem, and DFDV SOL being integrated across like numerous areas of DeFi is a really important component to that. Another partnership which was pioneered by our very own Pete Humiston internally, which I think is important and related, but on a slightly different angle, was our partnership with Bonk, whereby we're actually operating a joint validator for them, and they're helping market to get some additional delegated stake. We got questions around like, oh, are you pivoting to a Bonk treasury strategy or anything like that? That's certainly not the case. We're sticking with our North Star of SOL per share, not Bonk per share. But obviously, we felt it was important to pursue that partnership, just given the high amount of mind share and that project has, and the legitimacy of that project as well. So I think you'll see a lot of what I would say like on-chain TradFi innovation come from this company. This is what we feel is just the start.
Yeah, it's gonna be very interesting to watch. And also, I think the partnership with Bonk makes a lot of sense. Kind of shows that you understand the Solana culture and community, right? So I feel like that Bonk team has just been deep in it and very well connected for the past several years, at least since I've been really digging deeper into Solana since late 2023. Well, the next area I want to go with this is like, how do you actually think about executing the buys? So this latest announcement that came out on Friday, this was the big one, right? Pretty splashy. Up to $5 billion line of credit to continue to buy. So
can I ask about that a little bit? Can I ask about this? So who are RK Capital? Because I think obviously it came around the same sort of time that there was open criticism of how the financing of the ETH vehicle had been, and I've seen a lot of other vehicles which seemingly are financed more with, let's say, short-term capital. Who are RK Capital? It's an equity line of credit. What exactly does that mean? Is that debt or is that equity? And like, how is that coming about?
Yeah, it's a great question. So an equity line of credit, you can almost think of this as, so first of all, the capacity that we announced does not necessarily mean like, $5 billion worth of shares are getting sold like tomorrow or anything, right? There's a process that we have to go through. We filed our Form S1 yesterday with the SEC to register up to $1 billion worth of capacity on that $5 billion equity line of credit. And the way to think about this, the metaphor I like to use, it's almost like a faucet that we can turn on or off, whereby we can, sort of like drip shares out there, if you will, directly through, through RK. They're obviously the ones who are would be purchasing the shares, and it's solely at our discretion, right? And you can see all of the terms on the what we call the ELOC for abbreviation, as disclosed in our S1, and we felt it was really important to have this in place. It's one of like many different capital, I'm going to say like financing options that we have available to us. But MicroStrategy was really the first to pioneer this idea of accretive dilution, whereby they use a similar but different facility called an ATM through their shelf registration form S3. And the reason I use this faucet analogy is because rather than going and selling like, a massive giant share, like block of shares to a number of different investors in one big chunk, the company has the discretion to kind of like ease into it or be as aggressive as they want. And the idea here is that you go about issuing shares whenever your company is trading at a premium to your underlying holdings. And you're able to do something called capturing the spread between the equity value and the net asset value of your underlying holdings. So think of it as like effectively issuing equity for a certain amount and being able to buy the Solana or whatever the underlying asset is at half off or a third off or whatever it is, depending on whatever that spread is. So this facility effectively allows us to do that. We felt RK was a good partner, long-term partner to do this with, and I think that's about all I can comment on that.
Okay.
Any plans on acquiring Farcoin?
No plans on acquiring Farcoin or pivoting to a meme coin strategy. We actually often get asked, like, are you guys going to do this with other assets? Like, this isn't Solana Corp, it is DeFi Dev Corp, right? And what we've told people is this vehicle, DFDV, is purely focused on Solana. And to the extent that we want to go and do this with other assets in the future, we might consider it, but we will keep this one a pure SOL play and effectively have another vehicle set aside for other assets.
I like that a lot. I had to ask, but I like the conviction you have on the Solana front when it comes to this asset. It's like you have someone already. You have a lot of people on Bitcoin, right? Even Pompliano is trying to spin up a fund now to buy Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, I can't remember one of our spaces. Someone was just like, well. So one of the cool things about these vehicles is like volatility is actually a really important component to this, right? You're not going to go and get the same effect doing a gold treasury strategy, right? Because gold is just not a volatile enough asset to attract the kinds of folks who want to monetize volatility and all the individuals who were sort of captivated by Michael Saylor's pitch on volatility, right? Solana is more volatile than Bitcoin. So you have this wonderful dynamic where, like, as Bitcoin volatility goes down over the coming years, which you'd expect as adoption goes up, we really think we can sort of plug that hole for folks who really want to monetize volatility. So in one of our spaces, someone was like, why don't you just put WIF or Doge or something in your treasury strategy? Just go like max vol, right? And yes, you could do that, but there's some natural cap off where it doesn't matter if you're 700 vol versus 1,000 vol, like it's all kind of the same to the convertible ARB guys and the options traders. And obviously we want to have some kind of good fundamental underlying business beneath it as well. So of course you could go max speculation if you wanted to, and I'm sure there are going to be a number of meme coin treasury strategies announced in the coming weeks and months.
I'm sure we'll get some of those. I'm curious, can you share a little bit about your Solana outlook and like what makes it, what gives you guys so much conviction in SOL, the asset here?
Yeah, I alluded a little bit to this in the beginning. I think it's it's not just that it's super fast and cheap, but I really feel that SOL is what I've called like very economically dense, right? So it obviously powers everything from meme coins to stable coins and DPIN. The stat that stood out to me that I often cite is if you look at Q1 of this year, I think Solana led all chains in DEX volume in terms of market share. It hit somewhere around 40%, with absolute DEX volumes actually increasing 35% quarter over quarter. And that's like despite the fact that overall spot trading volumes declined in the crypto industry, right? And that usage is obviously really important, just because you want to be where the where the action is. So I've told people, and the company has told people pretty publicly that we think there's a very good chance Solana flips Ethereum this cycle. Obviously Ethereum has merit, but Solana's even just like technical roadmap, particularly with Fire Dancer and Alpenglow, like all the developer activity going on, I think just gives it such a good edge today. And at some point, I think the price action will reflect those strong fundamentals.
Well, very bold claim, but clearly you all are putting your money where your mouth is. So can't argue with that. I guess we got to get into risk management a little bit. I think there's growing concern in the crypto space that that the corporate treasuries in general are starting to become one of the bigger risks in a upcoming bear market. and would it cause sell-off cascades? Would it make a bear market potentially worse? I'm curious how you all are thinking about that and kind of protecting yourselves for a potential downturn.
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, by virtue of this whole team having been crypto native, I think we understand we all have the scars from having lived through multiple bear markets. So we're not going to do anything, for lack of a better phrase, anything stupid, because we understand once the market starts to turn, you could have a pretty considerable drawdown in the underlying asset. And we're not apologetics for volatility, right? To the extent that SOL suffers, you can obviously expect that any crypto treasury vehicles that have their balance sheet solely concentrated in Solana are also that price action should accordingly adjust. But what does this mean? This means you need to survive a bear market. So you shouldn't go and issue short-term debt. You shouldn't go and issue margin loans that you could, get called back if the underlying asset draws down 30-40%, which it can very quickly. And you just need to be very thoughtful around your overall capital structure and the way that you go about accreting the underlying Solana on a per share basis. The other component that we've spoken about, which I think is really important, we don't have anything to announce today, but I think will become more important in the coming months and over the next 12 months, is this idea of coming up with like proactive shareholder friendliness initiatives. So we often get asked the question like, oh, what happens if you trade below 1x NAV? Like if the underlying equity goes below the value of your Solana holdings, like what can you do to protect shareholders in that instance? A mechanism we've given as an example that might be shareholder friendly would be you can imagine a scenario where maybe underlying shareholders can redeem their equity for the underlying SOL per share, right? If we trade below 1x NAV, that could be or offer some level of support that is obviously shareholder friendly and protects shareholders in the event of a prolonged downturn. But look, at the end of the day, our goal is not to sell any SOL. And we've said this is a permanent accumulation vehicle, which is pretty distinct from ETFs and other things that are out there. So we're going to be very thoughtful about how we structure this so that we can withstand the bear and survive over the next 5-10 decades to come.
Well, that's very encouraging to hear. And I do think kind of personally, folks have this big concern out there, but I think the next question is, well, how operationally does it play out? Like how would this turn into a sell cascade? And I think you mentioned some of the ways that it potentially could, short-term debt and how you're avoiding it. So I think
it could. What's interesting is I kind of think of these almost as isolated incidents, right? Just because one particular crypto treasury vehicle blows up or gets margin called or whatever it is, and they have to sell their underlying position, like doesn't necessarily mean everyone else goes and starts to blow up. Like there could be some domino or cascading effect depending on, for example, I don't envision a scenario where if someone like who was operating a Bitcoin treasury vehicle today, right, at pretty subscale came out and did something dumb that suddenly it means like all of Bitcoin is going to blow up, right? Just given the sheer scale of where MicroStrategy and some of these other vehicles are at, plus like the sheer market cap of Bitcoin, it feels pretty insulated from like one or two isolated events. Where you run into risk, of course, is when a bunch of the different counterparties are really intertwined, like you saw a few years ago with all the all the lender blowups back in 21, 22. So we think this is probably a bit more isolated, but there are obviously a lot of vehicles out there. So to the extent that a bunch of people are doing really dumb things, you could start to see some impact, but TBD.
That makes sense. Actually, we have a question up on the screen. I've got a couple more, but I thought this was a good
Yeah.
one. Actually, a decent seg from where you were just going. It's like, why do you think we're seeing so many of these treasury companies spinning up now? I guess perhaps more directed. So like what made you all choose Q2 2025 to go? Was there anything specific?
Well, I think there's two parts to this. One, there's the regulatory environment, right? You couldn't spin up one of these vehicles a year ago because we were in a completely different reg environment. You would have had to deal with the risk that the SEC would come knocking at your door and say, "Hey, you're 40 Act company. This is security. Like, shut this down immediately." So once you had the most pro crypto U.S. government elected in history this past November, it made it possible to spin these vehicles up. But I think you're seeing a lot of these vehicles spin up, some for the right motivations and some probably just because there are fast chasers in the space. For us, the motivation was really to give folks the what I would call like a more efficient way to stack the underlying asset. I often answer this in the context of like ETFs versus crypto treasury vehicles. Like, why do you need to exist in a world of SOL ETFs? And when I tell people is like, if you just wanted the underlying price exposure, then yeah, probably a SOL ETF is your best bet. But if you wanted something that is giving you enhanced exposure, and I shy away from the term leveraged exposure because I think leverage has, again, the connotation you're doing something dumb. A crypto treasury vehicle is a really nice way to get that enhanced exposure because you were betting on the underlying team who was running that treasury vehicle to accumulate the underlying asset faster than you could on your own. And the metaphor I give people is like an ETF is the life raft on a river. You're just subject to the current being the price action. And a treasury vehicle is like a high speedboat on the river that gets you to your destination much faster. You just have to make sure that the speedboat is actually well built and doesn't sink if the current gets too choppy. So long-winded way of saying I think a lot of people are just getting in because of FOMO, but I think there are a handful of teams out there in the space who are doing this for ideological and principled reasons, who want your everyday investors to be able to have access to an enhanced exposure vehicle.
I like that analogy a lot. I actually hadn't heard that before. It makes a lot of sense. It's the river versus the high-speed boat, and you have to trust the boat. You also have to trust the captain of the boat. And I've got two more quick questions before we wrap things up. I know we got to go. I want to be conscious of your time. Quick chance to give you your flowers. So over on Decrypt today, we published the story that Cantor Fitzgerald named DFDV the best positioned of the Solana corporate treasury companies that they've been monitoring. They cited your experienced management team and ownership of Solana infrastructure. I wanted to give you a chance to respond to that, perhaps in your own words. Like, why do you think that you all are the best? And not to throw shade at the other companies, but just to give you a chance to kind of tout your team a bit.
I mean, I think you hit it with the metaphor, right? You need to trust not only the piece of equipment that's on the river going with the current, but you need to trust the people who are driving it. And I think the fact that we are a crypto native team with many years of experience across the cycle. I mean, our CEO was, Joseph was literally CEO of the first Canadian Bitcoin exchange, right? It just gives us a certain level of what I would say reliability and trust that is hard to build for someone who's a tourist and just coming into this space for the first time. It also means that we know exactly where to go, who to partner with. We're not learning about this stuff for the very first time, which means we can ruthlessly optimize for acquiring the underlying asset in a way that would just be more difficult for folks who are just learning the space to do. So I think it all goes back to the team, and I think it all goes back to the very simple but ruthless alignment that we have around SOL per share, right? That's important because I think if you're not explicit about trying to grow the underlying asset on a per share basis, right, there may be other teams that are out there that get compensated on market cap growth or, absolute treasury growth, but then they could dilute their shareholders indefinitely and, shareholders end up losing out. So we're really on the same side as our shareholders. And, I think having that alignment in place with a strong crypto native team gives us an inherent leg up.
Well, love to hear it. DK, this has been great. I want to give you a chance, maybe just final thoughts. And then is there anything coming next that our listeners should be on the lookout for?
Anything coming next, man. Again, we press release like madmen. So, you can follow our blog, follow our Twitter. Yes. We announced yesterday after the close that we're going to be giving a business update call/interview next week. That'll be Thursday pre-market. I'll be at permissionless as well. Nice. Get the benefit of main stage speaker slot to chat all things crypto treasury vehicles. And as I've been telling folks, if MicroStrategy showed what is possible in the crypto treasury space, DeFi Dev Corp is here to show them what's next.
Love it. Well, this has been fantastic.
Hell yeah.
You got me bulled up on DFDV. I got to admit.
Fuck yeah.
So you're doing your job. We wish you the best.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on, guys, and always happy to chat this stuff. So
thanks, DK. Appreciate it, brother.
Take care, guys.
All right, that was fun. That was great. That was some good insight. Honestly, very bullish. I've got my Solana bags packed, so always down to hear stuff like that. All right, let's get to our YEET giveaway. Sorry, the code today was KICK, KICK, raffleball.xyz. Every day, Monday to Friday, you have a chance to enter a code if you're listening live. Come on stage and win some money. So let's get some money away, and then I'm gonna go make some tea. Rezonico. Let's see if he's eligible. Timothy. Names to let us know. All right. Are we good? Sims, are we good?
Good.
All right.
All right.
All right. I think I'll be fine tomorrow. Or in 2 days.
Rosanico.
All right, Rosanico, what up?
Hi, Jim.
How you doing?
I'm good.
Congratulations, you're gonna win some money today.
Amazing.
All right. So first and foremost, you already made $500, so that's for sure. You will leave with
Whoa.
$500 today. So congratulations. Second of all, are you watching us on audio or video?
Video.
Video. Okay, so let's play some Lamb Chop. We played Risk yesterday.
Yeah.
All right. You know how that works?
Yep.
All right. Basically, guys, he tells us when to stop. So we're gonna play $250 hands. What level do you want to play on?
Easy,
Medium.
Medium. All right. Can you guys hear now? I think I fixed
We
it.
can. We can hear it.
There you go. Ding, ding, ding. All right, let's go. Good luck, Rosanico. Let's go. 293. Oh, yeah. Let's go. That was nice. You want to follow it? You want to chase it?
Let's go.
Let's go. That was nice. Okay, dude. Hold on. Really? Sims, does that happen often?
What a fake
After
out
he's
that was.
leaving? What? That was a fake out.
I
That was a
mean,
dirty.
You are on medium. It's
Yeah, I know that.
I find it substantially harder on medium. When you're playing at 250 a go, you should just stick it on easy and go for it.
That was crazy. All right, do you want to do this next one on easy, Rosanico?
Okay, let's do easy.
Let's do easy. All right. 268.
There we go.
Are you kidding me?
Oh, no. No luck today.
Mando wins again.
And
Wow. No luck today and yesterday. But those are some like, yesterday he went like max Degenz. So I see. Wow. Rosanico, we're sorry, man. You're unlucky, but you still win $500. So there you go.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks a lot, guys.
There you go. Very welcome. For everybody else, make sure you follow us on Kick at kick.com/Degenz live. That's where we go out every day. Tyler, you're going live again today at noon.
yep, 1 hour.
Hell
Okay.
yeah. Love to see that. Love to see that. With that, we'll see y'all tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for another episode from our On Rug Radio. Let's go.